Welcome to my quick tips on value and learning value. This is a fast video where I chose this Boston Terrier. On one side of her face is really dark and on the other side of her face is really bright. So there's a lot of different values in her, and I thought this would be a great subject to touch on this. So tonal value is in every piece of art. It can make or break your style and even boost your ability to show various textures and shapes. So my first tip on value would be to recognize where your light source is. Where your light source is pointing, it's going to be a lot brighter and it's going to fade from that point. So you want to make sure that you know exactly where your light source is coming from and that you follow it to where the shadows are, which comes back to my second tip, which is recognizing where all of the shadows are. So when you're separating these lights from darks, it can really it can throw your whole entire piece off if you don't have it correct. So it's very important to look at the values and look at all of the shadows and lights that you're dealing with. Now, if you don't know what kind of shadows you're dealing with, or the lights that you're dealing with, or the darks, whichever, one tip that I would give you is to use a value scale. You can actually make one of these yourself, and it will help you understand the tonal relationships. So to make your own, you would swatch out about 9 squares, and you would start with number 1 all the way to 9, and number 1 would be your lightest, and 9 would be your darkest, and then you would fill in between to find the relationship of light to dark. So my next tip would be to consider relative values. The same color of gray will look darker on a white background than on a black background. It is the same gray, but because the background is a different intensity of color, completely opposite, black and white, it will look different, and it can mess with your tonal value, what you're judging and what that value is. It's always good to swatch out your value scale to make sure that you are not misjudging it. My next tip would be is if you're having trouble with tonal values, would be to set up a lighting with like various objects like a ball or like a cube, something, just so you can see and study how it reflects, and then you can also see how it's casting shadows. You can even try lots of different textures, a lot of different just shapes, just to see how that light affects that object. You can even try the artificial lighting, natural lighting, and then note the differences on that as well. So my last tip would be to make a value study. In every piece that I do, I always have a black and white printout in front of me so I can see all of my tonal values. A lot of times this will help me to determine how dark I need to go or how light I need to be. It really, when you take the color out, it really helps just to sharpen it up so you can tell where all of the shadows and the lights are. So a value study will help organize your values into groups, and it'll help you separate the drawing in values, basically. So you're trying to summarize the drawing into 4 to 5 groups of values, and it will help you establish the values. So it makes it a lot easier. So as you can see in this picture, she has a light shining on the right side of her face, and it's reflecting off the back wall, which you can't see in this picture, but in the original picture that I had, it's reflecting off the back wall. So she has some light on her shoulder as well. So it can be difficult if you don't have a value study or a black and white in front of you. So I guess if that would be my 7th tip, that would be to make sure that you have a value study in front of you, either that you created it or printed it off of the computer with just a black and white study of it. Thank you for watching my quick tips on value, and I hope that it has helped you. Of course, I go into more depth on my Patreon page about value and colors and shaping and all of that good stuff. Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and hit the notifications bell so that you can stay up to date with all of the videos that I release.